Feudal Japan, 1598. Daichi knelt in the mud, his katana broken, his armor shattered, his lord dead beside him. He had lost, completely, publicly, dishonorably. Every samurai code said the same thing. A warrior who fails his lord must restore honor through death. Seppuku, ritual suicide, clean, honorable, expected. Daichi placed his tanto knife against his stomach. His hand shook. One thrust, and the shame would end. But then he remembered something his father told him before dying. Daichi, any fool can die for honor. The true warrior lives for it. That night, covered in mud and blood and shame, Daichi made a choice that would define everything. He would not die. He would rise, and he would never stop rising. The samurai way isn't about never falling. It's about never staying fallen. Nanakorobi Yaoki, fall 7 times, rise 8. Here's what nobody tells you about never giving up. It's not about feeling strong, it's about choosing to rise when you feel destroyed. The question isn't whether you'll face defeat. The question is, when defeat comes, will you rise or will you quit? Chapter 1. The Awakening. The warrior who fell 3 months earlier, Daichi had been everything a samurai should be. 24 years old, skilled with the katana, loyal to Lord Takahashi, a respected daimyo in Ikizan province. Confident, perhaps too confident. His father had been a legendary warrior, Daichi the Iron, they called him. He'd fought in 40 battles, never lost a duel, died with honor protecting his lord. Young Daichi grew up in that shadow. Everyone expected him to be like his father. And Daichi believed he would be. Believed he was. He trained hard. He mastered sword forms. He studied strategy. He performed his duties flawlessly. But he'd never actually faced real battle. Never been tested when death was certain. Never experienced the moment when everything falls apart. That moment came on a spring morning in 1598. Lord Takahashi's forces, 300 samurai, faced an ambush by the Uesugi clan. 800 warriors surrounded them in a mountain pass. No escape. No reinforcements. Certain death. Daichi stood beside Lord Takahashi as the enemy charged. The first clash was chaos. Screaming, blood, steel on steel, men dying around him. Daichi fought well initially. His training held. He cut down 3 enemies, protected his position. But then an arrow struck Lord Takahashi's horse. The lord fell. Enemy samurai swarmed. Daichi rushed to protect him. This was the moment his entire life had prepared him for. This was when he'd prove he was his father's son. He fought desperately. 4 enemies came at once. He blocked one strike, dodged another, but the third caught his shoulder. Pain exploded. His katana slipped in his bloody grip. A massive warrior wearing the mon of the Uesugi commander charged straight at Lord Takahashi. Daichi jumped between them. Their blades clashed. Once, twice. The third strike shattered Daichi's katana. The enemy warrior didn't hesitate. His blade found its mark not in Daichi, but in Lord Takahashi behind him. Daichi heard his lord gasp. Felt him fall. The enemy warrior kicked Daichi aside like garbage. Useless, he spat. The battle was over. Most of Takahashi's samurai were dead. The survivors, including Daichi, were captured. But Daichi wasn't injured badly. Just his shoulder. He'd live. And that was the worst part. He'd live with the shame of failing his lord, of being kicked aside, of being called useless. That night, the Uesugi released the surviving samurai, a calculated insult. Go back to your villages. Tell everyone how you failed. You're not worth killing. Daichi walked for 3 days back to his home village. Each step was agony, not physical pain, but shame. His father had died protecting his lord. Daichi had failed protecting his. When he reached home, his mother saw his face and understood immediately. Lord Takahashi? Dead. I failed him. She was silent for a long moment. What will you do? The honorable thing. Seppuku. His mother's face hardened. Is that what your father would want? Father died with honor. Your father died fighting, not running away through death. You think seppuku is honor? It's the easy way out. But I failed. So fail better next time. Rise. Keep rising. That's what warriors do. But Daichi couldn't hear it. The shame was too heavy, the dishonor too complete. He prepared for seppuku that night, wrote his death poem, cleaned his tanto, dressed in white, knelt in the garden, placed the blade against his stomach, and couldn't do it. Not because he was afraid of pain, because somewhere deep inside, a voice, maybe his father's, maybe his own, whispered, "This isn't the end. This is the beginning." He lowered the tanto, stood, walked into the night. He had no lord, no honor, no reputation, no purpose. But he was alive, and if he was alive, he could rise. Chapter 2. The Principle, the Master of Seven Falls. Daichi wandered for 2 weeks. No direction, no plan, just walking. He slept in forests, ate whatever he could find, avoided villages where someone might recognize him. One evening, he came to a small shrine deep in the mountains. An old man sat there, feeding birds. Simple robes, weathered face, peaceful presence. Daichi was about to walk past, but the old man spoke without looking up. "You have the walk of a defeated warrior." Daichi stopped. "How did you? I've seen many defeated warriors. Most take 2 paths, death or sake. You've chosen neither. Why? I don't know." "Sit." Daichi sat. The old man finally looked at him. His eyes were sharp, penetrating. "Tell me what happened." Daichi told the whole story. The battle, his lord's death, his failure, the shame, his almost seppuku. The old man listened without judgment. When Daichi finished, he nodded slowly. "Do you know who I am?" "No, Oji-san. My name is Miyamoto. I was once called the Undefeated." Daichi's eyes widened. Everyone knew that name. Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest swordsman in Japan. 60 duels, never lost. "But that title is wrong," Miyamoto continued. "I wasn't undefeated. I was defeated many times, over 60 times in training and battles. I just never stayed defeated." He threw more seeds to the birds. "You know the difference between me and those who died in their first defeat? You were stronger. No, I was more stubborn. I refused to stay fallen." Miyamoto stood, surprisingly agile for his age. "Come, I'll show you something." He led Daichi to a small dojo behind the shrine. Inside, on the wall was written, "Chitendobi, Batiki, Nanakorobi Yaoki. Fall 7 times, rise 8, Miyamoto translated. "This is the only principle that matters. Not skill, not strength, not even courage. Just this. When you fall, rise. When you fall again, rise again. Keep rising until rising becomes your nature." "But I failed, my lord." "Yes, and if you die now, that failure is your final act. Your legacy. Is that what you want?" Daichi was silent. "Or," Miyamoto continued, "you can rise, learn, become stronger. Honor your lord, not through death, but through becoming the warrior he believed you could be." "How?" "First, you must understand something about defeat." Miyamoto sat in Seiza position, gestured for Daichi to do the same. "Most warriors think defeat is failure. It's not. Defeat is information. It teaches you what doesn't work, what you need to improve, where you're weak. That day in battle, you learned you weren't as skilled as you thought. Your katana technique wasn't sufficient. Your positioning was wrong. Your awareness failed. All of this is valuable information if you rise to use it." Daichi felt something shift in his chest. "So, my lord's death wasn't meaningless? Nothing is meaningless if you extract the lesson and rise stronger. That's how you honor the fallen, by becoming what they needed to you to be." Miyamoto stood, picked up a bokken. "Now, show me your stance." And in that moment, Daichi's true training began. But Miyamoto did something unexpected. He looked at Daichi with unusual intensity, then spoke as if addressing not just him, but an invisible audience beyond time itself. "You know, Daichi, this path you're beginning, this way of rising after falling, it's not just yours. Throughout history, warriors have faced this same choice: stay fallen or rise. In times you cannot imagine, in places far from here, men will face the same defeats you faced, the same shame, the same desire to quit, He gestured at the kanji on the wall, Nanakorobi Yaoki. These words aren't just for you, they're for every warrior who falls. And when you practice this, when you rise after falling, you join something ancient and eternal, a brotherhood of those who refuse to stay down. Miyamoto's voice took on a quality that made Daichi feel as if the old master was speaking across centuries. If you feel this calling to rise, no matter how many times you fall, then walk with us. Not just me, not just the warriors in this dojo, but all who choose this path across all time. The training is here, the way is clear. Join us in practicing this discipline. Daichi bowed deeply, feeling the weight and honor of those words. When he rose, Miyamoto was already moving to the training ground, as if nothing unusual had been said. But something had changed in Daichi. He no longer felt alone in his defeat. He felt part of something larger. Chapter 3. The Test. Training in Failure. Miyamoto's training was unlike anything Daichi expected. Today, the master said on the first morning, you will fight me. You will lose, and then we'll discuss why. They sparred. Daichi was beaten in 15 seconds. Again, they sparred. 12 seconds this time. Again. 10 seconds. Again. Over and over. Daichi lost every single time. After 20 consecutive defeats, he threw down his bokken in frustration. I can't beat you. Correct. Now pick up your sword and try again. What's the point? You're too skilled. The point, Miyamoto interrupted calmly, is not beating me. The point is rising after defeat. You've fallen 20 times today. Each time, you rise. That's the training. But I'm not improving. You're improving at the only thing that matters. Continuing when you want to quit. That quality, that stubborn refusal to stay down, is more valuable than any technique. He gestured for Daichi to sit. Let me tell you about my life. I'm called undefeated, but I lost over 60 training matches before I won my first duel. 60 defeats. Do you know what I learned from those 60 losses? That you weren't good enough? No. That I would rise 61 times if necessary. And 62. And 100. I learned that no defeat could make me quit. Once I learned that once rising became automatic, I became unstoppable. Not because I never lost again, but because losing couldn't stop me. Over the next weeks, Daichi lost hundreds of training matches. To Miyamoto, to other students, to young students half his age. Each loss burned, each defeat hurt his pride. But something was changing. Slowly, almost imperceptibly. After the 100th defeat, Daichi didn't get angry. He just rose, adjusted his stance, tried again. After the 200th defeat, he started noticing what he did wrong. Small things, his footwork, his grip, his timing. After the 300th defeat, he started making small improvements. He lasted longer, his form improved. He saw opportunities. And after the 500th defeat, he won his first match against a younger student, barely a victory, but a victory nonetheless. Miyamoto watched from the sidelines. When Daichi bowed after winning, the master called him over. Congratulations on your first victory. Thank you, sensei. Now let me tell you what you actually accomplished. You didn't just defeat that student. You defeated something much more dangerous, the part of yourself that wants to quit. You fell 500 times and you rose 501. That is true victory. He placed his hand on Daichi's shoulder. Most warriors quit after 3 defeats, 5, maybe 10. They tell themselves they're not talented enough, not skilled enough, not destined for greatness. But you've proven you can endure 500 defeats. That makes you dangerous. Why dangerous? Because now there's no number of defeats that can stop you. If you, Garden, can rise after 500 falls, you can rise after 5,000, after 10,000. You've become what every opponent fears most, unkillable. That night, Daichi understood. Miyamoto wasn't teaching him sword technique. He was teaching him how to be unbreakable. Chapter 4. Warrior Psychology. The Science of Rising. One evening, Miyamoto gathered all his students for a teaching session. He addressed Daichi directly, but clearly meant the lesson for everyone. Daichi, You asked me yesterday why some warriors quit after 3 defeats, while others can rise after 300. I'll explain the psychology. He drew in the sand with a stick. The human brain has 2 responses to repeated failure. The first is called learned helplessness. When you fail repeatedly and believe there's nothing you can do to change it, your brain stops trying. You become passive. This is what happens to most people. The second response is called anti-fragility. When you fail repeatedly but believe each failure makes you stronger, your brain adapts. It builds new neural pathways. You become more resilient with each defeat. This is what happens to warriors. Layer 1. The neuroscience of resilience. Your brain, Miyamoto explained, has a structure called the amygdala that processes fear and defeat. When you lose, it screams, "Danger, quit, run." But you also have a prefrontal cortex that can override that fear response. Every time you choose to rise after falling, you strengthen the prefrontal cortex's control. You literally rewire your brain to see defeat as temporary, not permanent. I've trained students who quit after 5 defeats and students who can endure 500. The difference isn't talent, it's neural wiring. The ones who keep rising have trained their brains to treat defeat as information, not identity. Layer 2. The Buddhist foundation. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from attachment, Miyamoto continued. When you attach to victory, when you believe your worth depends on winning, every defeat destroys you. But when you detach from outcome and attach to process, when you find identity in rising rather than winning, defeat loses its power over you. The Buddha himself faced countless defeats before. Enlightenment, Mara, the demon of delusion, attacked him repeatedly. Each time, Buddha simply sat, unmoved, unshaken. That is the warrior way. Layer 3. The way of the phoenix. In Japanese tradition, Miyamoto said, we have the concept of Fushichou the phoenix. It dies in flames and rises from ashes. This is the warrior spirit. Fushichou no Kokoro, the phoenix heart. It's the quality that allows you to be completely destroyed and still rise. Not because the destruction didn't hurt, but because rising is your nature. Daichi, you died that day on the battlefield. The old Daichi, arrogant, untested, weak, burned completely. And from those ashes, a new Daichi is rising, stronger, humbler, unbreakable. Layer 4. The Hagakure Wisdom. Miyamoto quoted from the Hagakure, the book of the samurai. The way of the samurai is found in death. When it comes to either or, there is only the quick choice of death. It is not particularly difficult. Be determined and advance. People misunderstand this, he explained. It doesn't mean seek death. It means accept death so completely that you're free to live fully. Once you've faced the worst true defeat, true shame, true failure, and risen anyway, nothing can stop you. You've already died and come back. What else can the world do to you? Layer 5. Historical patterns. Look at history, Miyamoto said, listing names Daichi barely recognized. Every great warrior faced catastrophic defeat before achieving mastery. Uesugi Kenshin lost his first 3 battles completely, became one of the greatest generals in Japan. Tokugawa Ieyasu faced absolute defeat at Mikatagahara, barely escaped with his life. Later unified all Japan. And me? I lost over 60 times before becoming undefeated. The pattern is clear. Warriors who never face defeat stay weak. Warriors who face defeat and quit remain broken. But warriors who face defeat and rise become legends, not because they're more talented, but because they refuse to stay fallen. Daichi absorbed all of this. His repeated defeats weren't weakness, they were training. Each fall was teaching him to rise faster, stronger, more determined. Chapter 5. The First Transformation. The Duel that changed everything. 6 months into training, a ronin named Takeshi arrived at Miyamoto's shrine. Tall, scarred, arrogant. "Old man," he called out, "I've heard you train warriors here. Let me test one. If he can defeat me, I'll acknowledge your school. If not, your reputation is false." Miyamoto didn't react to the insult. "Daichi, face him." Daichi's heart sank. He'd improved. But this Ronin looked deadly. Experienced, dangerous. They bowed. Drew Bokken began. Takeshi was fast, brutal. His first strike nearly knocked Daichi's sword from his hands. The second strike caught Daichi's ribs. Pain exploded. The third strike swept Daichi's legs. He fell. Takeshi stood over him. "Stay down, boy. You're not ready." And in that moment, Daichi heard Miyamoto's voice in his mind. "Fall 7 times, rise 8. He rose. Takeshi looked surprised. "You want more?" They fought again. Daichi lasted longer this time but still fell. He rose. Again. Fell. Rose. Again. Fell. Rose. After the 7th fall, Takeshi's expression had changed from arrogance to respect. "You don't quit. Never." They fought an 8th time. Daichi was exhausted, battered, but something had shifted. His body moved differently, calmer, more focused. He wasn't fighting to win, he was fighting because fighting was what he did. Rising was what he did. This time, when Takeshi struck, Daichi didn't try to overpower him. He redirected, flowed, and found an opening. His bokken touched Takeshi's throat. Light, controlled, definitive, victory. The other students erupted in cheers, but Miyamoto remained calm, walked over as both fighters bowed to each other. "Takeshi," Miyamoto said, "you're a skilled warrior, but you've never learned to truly rise. You've avoided defeat through skill. That makes you brittle. One real defeat will break you." He turned to Daichi. "But this one? He's learned to fall and rise, to be broken and rebuild. That makes him unbreakable. All your skill couldn't defeat his refusal to stay fallen." Takeshi bowed deeply. "I came to test your students. Instead, you've taught me. May I train here?" "You may." That evening, Miyamoto called Daichi to the shrine. "Do you understand what happened today? I won the duel?" "No. You won something far greater. You discovered that you can't be defeated not because you won't fall, but because you'll always rise. That's the difference between a good warrior and a legendary one." He paused, then continued with that quality of speaking beyond the moment. "And that discovery that you're unbreakable, not through strength but through rising, connects you to something eternal. Right now, in this moment, you've joined the brotherhood of warriors who fall and rise across all time." Miyamoto looked at Daichi but seemed to see beyond him. "Some will call this stubbornness. Some will call it courage. But we who walk this path know the truth. It's simply refusing to accept defeat as final, choosing to rise when everything says stay down." His voice became more direct, as if speaking to people Daichi couldn't see. "In meditation, Daichi, you've felt it, haven't you? That connection to others on this same path. Past warriors, future warriors, all choosing to rise. You're not alone in this practice. The training is here, the way is clear, and the community of those who never quit across all ages walks with you." Daichi felt it again, that sense of being part of something larger than himself. A lineage of warriors who understood that the true battle was internal, the choice to rise. Miyamoto smiled slightly. "Good. Now rest. Tomorrow, we train harder. Because you've proven you can rise after 7 falls. Now let's see how you handle 700. But rising after training defeats was one thing. Rising after real failure, after the world has crushed you completely, that was the ultimate test. And it was coming. Chapter 6. Deep Training Arc. The 7 Mountains. Miyamoto announced, "Your training here has taught you to rise after defeat in controlled circumstances. Now you need to learn to rise when everything is against you. You'll climb 7 mountains. 7 different challenges. If you quit any of them, you start over from Mountain 1. Mountain 1. The physical test. Daichi carried a 40-pound stone to the summit of Mount Hiei. 8 hours of climbing, legs burning, lungs screaming, the weight crushing his shoulders. Twice, he set the stone down, ready to quit. Twice, he remembered, Nanakorobi Yaoki, rise. He picked up the stone, continued, reached the summit. Mountain 2. The mental test. Miyamoto locked Daichi in a dark meditation room for 3 days. No light, minimal food, just sitting, breathing, facing his own mind. The first day, Daichi's mind raged, screamed, created 1,000 reasons why this was pointless, cruel, unnecessary. The second day, memories of his lord's death haunted him. The shame, the failure. He almost pounded on the door to escape, but he remembered. Fall 7 times, rise 8. He sat through the mental agony, let it wash over him without running. By the third day, his mind quieted. He found stillness beneath the chaos. Mountain 3. The social test. Miyamoto sent Daichi back to his home village where everyone knew of his failure, where shame waited in every glance, every whispered conversation. The first person who recognized him looked away. The second said, loud enough to hear, "The one who failed Lord Takahashi." Every interaction was a small death. Every moment an invitation to quit, to leave, to hide. But Daichi stayed, walked through the village with his head up, met the stairs, absorbed the shame without defending himself. Not because it didn't hurt, because rising meant facing what hurt. Mountain 4. The skill test. Daichi challenged 10 different sword masters in friendly duels. He lost 9 of them, badly. Each loss was a test. Would he quit trying to improve? Would he decide he wasn't talented enough? He lost. He studied what went wrong. He adjusted. He tried again. By the 10th duel, he'd improved enough to fight evenly, even if he didn't win. Mountain 5. The fear test. Miyamoto took Daichi to a cliff edge. Jump. Below was a river, deep enough to survive the fall, but the height was terrifying. This is about facing fear of death, Miyamoto explained. If you can jump, knowing you might die, you prove death doesn't control you. Daichi stood at the edge. His body refused. Every instinct screamed, no. He jumped anyway. The fall felt eternal. The impact knocked the breath from him, but he survived, swam to shore, climbed back up. Again, Miyamoto said. He jumped 7 more times. By the 8th jump, the fear remained but didn't control him. Mountain 6. The patience test. Daichi spent 30 days doing one thing, polishing a sword, not his own Miyamoto's. Hour after hour, day after day. Repetitive, boring, seemingly pointless. His mind rebelled. This isn't training. This is wasting time. But he continued. And slowly he understood. This was training in persistence when there's no visible progress, in continuing when you can't see results, in rising day after day when nothing seems to change. Mountain 7. The purpose test. Miyamoto gave Daichi a choice. You can leave now. You've completed 6 mountains. You're significantly stronger than when you arrived. You could go live a peaceful life. Or you can climb the 7th mountain, the hardest, the one that will break you before it rebuilds you. What is it? Face the warrior who killed your lord. Daichi's blood went cold. The Uesugi commander. Yes, not to kill him, to thank him. Thank him? Thank him for teaching you that you weren't ready, for breaking the arrogant boy so a true warrior could emerge. If you can face him and feel gratitude instead of hatred, you'll have mastered rising. This was impossible. Every fiber of Daichi's being wanted revenge, wanted justice, wanted that warrior to pay. But he understood. This was the final test. Could he rise above even his desire for vengeance? Chapter 7. The final confrontation. Facing the past, Daichi traveled for 2 weeks to find the Uesugi commander, a man named Yamada. He expected to find a monster. Instead, he found an aging samurai tending a small farm. Yamada saw Daichi approaching, recognized the mon on his clothing. His hand moved to his sword. "I'm not here to fight," Daichi said, bowing deeply. "Then why are you here?" "To thank you." Yamada's face showed confusion. "Thank me? I killed your lord." "Yes, and in doing so, you killed the weak version of me, the arrogant boy who thought he was a warrior but had never been tested. You showed me I wasn't ready. That gift, painful as it was, began my true training." Yamada studied him for a long moment. Most men would come for revenge. I did want revenge for many months, but my master taught me that revenge is the desire of someone still broken. I'm no longer broken. I've been shattered and rebuilt 7 times. Each time, stronger. Who is your master? Miyamoto Musashi. Yamada's eyes widened. The undefeated one trains you. The one who rose after 60 defeats trains me. And he taught me that the measure of a warrior isn't avoiding failure, it's rising after failure. Yamada set down his farming tools, gestured for Daichi to sit as well. Your Lord Takahashi was a good man. I regret his death was necessary. It was war. You honored him by fighting well. And you honored me by not killing me, though you could have. Why didn't I kill you? Because you saw what I couldn't, that I had potential, but it needed breaking first. You kicked me aside and called me useless because I was useless. Not permanently, but in that moment, I needed to hear that truth. Yamada smiled slightly. You've changed dramatically from the boy I faced. I've fallen 700 times since then, and risen 701. They talked for hours. Yamada shared his own story, how he'd faced crushing defeat as a young warrior, had almost quit, but chose to rise. How that choice defined everything after. You and I, Yamada said as the sun set, we're the same. Warriors who learned that true strength isn't avoiding the fall, it's the rise after. Daichi bowed deeply. Thank you, Yamada-san, for the lesson, painful as it was. And thank you, Daichi-san, for showing me that the boy I defeated became the warrior I respect. As Daichi walked away, he felt something lift, the last weight of shame, the final ghost of his old self. He had died on that battlefield, been broken, shattered completely, and risen, over and over, until rising became who he was. Final reveal, the warrior truth. Daichi returned to Miyamoto's shrine. The master sat in his usual spot, feeding birds. You found him? I did. And? Boss? I thanked him. And I meant it. Miyamoto smiled, the first genuine smile Daichi had ever seen on his face. Then your training is complete. Not because you've mastered the sword, because you've mastered the rise. He stood, walked to the dojo, pointed at the kanji on the wall. Chi tendobi batsik, Nanakorobi Yaoki. Fall 7 times, rise 8. This isn't about the number, it's about the principle. However many times you fall, rise once more. That, once more, is everything. Most people, Miyamoto continued, quit after their first real defeat. They decide they're not talented enough, not strong enough, not destined for greatness. They let one fall define them. But you've learned the secret. Defeat only defines you if you stay fallen. If you rise, defeat becomes your teacher, your forge, the fire that makes you stronger. He looked directly at Daichi. Here's the truth warriors know, but civilians don't. Strength isn't about never falling. Everyone falls. The strongest warriors are simply those who've mastered the art of rising. Your father, Daichi the Iron, wasn't called that because he never fell. He was called that because he always rose. He faced crushing defeats before you were born, lost battles, failed missions, made mistakes, but he rose every time. That's what made him legendary. And now you're becoming the same, not because you're more talented than others, because you refuse to stay down. That refusal, that stubborn, relentless determination to rise, is the only quality that truly matters. Miyamoto placed both hands on Daichi's shoulders. You came here broken, seeking death. You leave here unbreakable, ready for life. That transformation from fallen to rising is the warrior's greatest achievement. Every defeat you face from now on, you'll know. This isn't the end. This is just another fall before another rise. And as long as you keep rising, nothing can truly defeat you. Daichi bowed deeply. Thank you, Sensei, for teaching me to rise. I didn't teach you to rise. You already had that quality inside you. I just showed you it was there. You did the hard part. You chose to rise 700 times, when quitting would have been easier. That evening, Daichi sat alone in the meditation hall, looking at those kanji Nanakorobi Yaoki, and understood completely. The warrior's way isn't avoiding failure. It's making failure irrelevant by always rising. Victory isn't never falling. Victory is never staying fallen. Strength isn't being unbreakable. Strength is breaking and rebuilding yourself stronger each time. Honor isn't avoiding defeat. Honor is facing defeat with dignity and rising anyway. The world will knock you down. Life will crush you. Battles will be lost. Lords will die. Dreams will shatter. But none of that matters if you rise. Fall 7 times, rise 8. That's the only math that matters. Ending the samurai lesson 10 years later, Daichi stood in his own dojo. Master now, not student. His reputation had grown not as undefeated, but as unbreakable. A young samurai knelt before him, 18 years old, eyes showing recent defeat and deep shame. Master Daichi, I failed my first battle. I ran. My lord almost died because of my cowardice. I came here to learn how to restore my honor through seppuku. Daichi looked at this young man and saw himself a decade ago, broken, ashamed, ready to quit through death. Stand up, Daichi said gently. The young man stood. What's your name? Kenji. Kenji, you think seppuku will restore your honor? It's the only way. I failed. You failed once. And now you want your final act to be quitting. Is that honor? Kenji looked confused. Daichi walked to the wall, pointed at the kanji. Tsiten dobi batsi, Nanakorobi Yaoki. Fall 7 times, rise 8. Do you know what this means? That. You should never give up? Deeper than that. It means that falling isn't failure. Staying fallen is failure. The measure of a warrior isn't avoiding the fall. It's the rise after. He placed his hand on Kenji's shoulder, and in that moment, felt the same presence he'd felt when Miyamoto taught him, as if speaking not just to this boy, but to all warriors who would ever face this moment. Kenji, listen carefully. You're standing at a crossroads. Behind you is death, quick, clean, seemingly honorable. But it's the coward's path disguised as honor. It's quitting because you fell once. Ahead of you is the warrior's path. Harder, longer. You'll fall many more times, but each time you'll rise, and each rise will make you stronger. Daichi's voice took on that quality he'd heard in both Miyamoto and Takeda-sensei, speaking across time itself. You're not alone on this path, Kenji. Throughout history, warriors have faced what you face now. The shame of defeat, the temptation to quit, and the choice to rise anyway. He gestured at the training ground where other students practiced. Look at them. Every warrior here has fallen, some once, some 100 times, but all chose to rise. That choice connects you to every warrior who ever refused to stay down. Past, present, and future warriors walking the same path. Daichi looked directly at Kenji, but his words seemed meant for more than just this one student. If you're ready to walk this path to fall and rise, to break and rebuild, to face defeat after defeat until nothing can keep you down, then training begins now. Not tomorrow, now. Join us, not just in this dojo, but in the eternal brotherhood of warriors who never quit. The choice is yours. Die once and be forgotten, or rise repeatedly and become unbreakable. Choose the rise. Always choose the rise. Kenji's eyes filled with tears, but he stood straighter. I choose to rise, master. Good. Daichi handed him a bokken. Then we begin. Today you'll fall 10 times, and you'll rise 11. Tomorrow 20 falls and 21 rises. We'll continue until falling becomes as natural as breathing and rising becomes automatic, he called to the other students. Everyone, this is Kenji. Today he joins the brotherhood of those who rise. Welcome him. The students bowed. Kenji bowed back, tears streaming but determination burning in his eyes. Daichi watched him take his place on the training ground and thought of Miyamoto, of Yamada, of his father. All warriors who'd learned the same lesson. You don't need to be the strongest to become unbreakable. You just need to rise one more time than you fall. Fall 7 times, rise 8. That's the warrior way. That's the only way. The warrior who never quits, life will knock you down. Repeatedly, brutally, unfairly, you will fail, you will lose. You will face moments when giving up seems like the only logical choice. But you're a warrior, and warriors don't stay fallen. Fall 7 times, rise 8. Not because it's easy, because it's who you are. Walk with presence, rise with purpose, become unbreakable.